I will send it out. Got some stuff to go over, and then we'll get started. Second, send it up. Go. The title wasn't totally correct because I found an article of stuff I wanted to cover right as right as we got started, so I will post that. Currently, we will not be having the debate today. That will end up on Monday. But till then, we have got stuff to cover, so don't worry. We're not going away. Time to spread the word. Well, there's a lot of people to send this out, so. Post this on all of them. And ready for it. All right. If you're new, here's the Discord. My name is David. This is Fresh Faces, New Ideas. If you're new, please follow. If you want to subscribe, please do that. If you don't want to put your own money in, then you can attach your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account, and then Jeff Bezos pays me, because it's always better when somebody else pays your bills. Technically, I work for Amazon, so yeah. Update on what? Hold on, let me have all this stuff update on all the stuff that should be coming up. We do not have the debate today. That will be on Monday tentatively. We will see if that needs to change again, but Monday appears to be that date. For tomorrow, we have the 8 p.m. Debate for the Alex Curious project. That is going to be on minimum wage and the just on minimum wage. When does it stop? And then sometime next week, we should attempt to have maybe the Hans one with North Countrymen debating the CDC moratorium, and B is I think next weekend we're going to have the independent thought one, but we'll find out about that whenever I find out that information. I will give it to you, and then I imagine at some point there will be the normal basketball pod covering up the off season, because the off season keeps rolling, and at some point we're gonna have to talk about it. I will be very upset about it. I'm not happy with how it's going. Anyway, what do we got today? So there's a new report showing that America, our healthcare is bad. We pay too much and we don't do anything. We got a Ben Shapiro video where he's defending. It appears to be, what is the title of this? Biden blames Florida surge for Florida for COVID surge. Ron DeSantis sits back. Okay. We then have we have some anti-mask stuff. Texas requirements for vaccination. We have Madison Cawthorn popping in for a mask mandate. We have Kirsten Sinema not knowing. We have Kirsten Sinema not knowing information about the. Damn it! Hold on. Lying on The View about the filibuster, and then we will go into the CDC moratorium, how we got here, what the how it ultimately started, how we ended up in this kerfuffle of who's to blame, how did we screw this up, why did it get to here, and things like that. So that'll probably be it for today. That'll be the full extension of that. But look, this argument, the arguments we're having, Uh, also, Joe Biden is now currently embroiled in his worst scandal. He did the grave sin of wearing a tan suit for his press conference about COVID, and amongst the job numbers, in which we had, I think it was almost 1 million jobs were added this month. So that's always good. Granted, look, as I've covered multiple times when talking about the job numbers, while ultimately it may look like Joe Biden created the most jobs of every president, he did come in with like a 20 million job gap. So there was a huge hole for him to fill, and from there I mean, a lot of it was simply coming back. We will see as things tick up closer, toward the end of the year, and then obviously a lot of this is going to depend on the way the rest of the country responds to COVID. As of yesterday, when I saw it, we were at around 93,000 new cases of COVID a day. Florida had just hit 21,000. I believe they broke another record for how many people in the hospital today. Among children for COVID, it is now up 84% in the last week. Schools are going to start opening, so we're obviously having mass mandate fights. Currently in Florida, if you are a school and you issue a mass mandate, there's a chance that you will lose your federal funding, because nothing says protect the children like not protecting the children. So there's that. Those are always good, fun things. So we'll have that. Also, I'm sure one of the other stupid ass arguments is Joe Biden responded with Governor Who, and they're like, oh, either he doesn't remember or critics are blaming him for that, which is nonsense. Look, you don't get to do nothing to mitigate this and then complain about somebody else. Ron DeSantis was happy to get all of that press a couple weeks ago when it was talking about how he, a couple months ago when it was like, oh, Texas actually won the pandemic by doing nothing, and then lo and behold, they're like the leading cause for the spread of COVID. I mean, across the country, it's pretty much up. But yeah, so the answer to that could have been, we need another 6 million people to lose housing so that we can add those numbers, because we don't have enough issues. So let's go over everything again. Tomorrow at 8 p.m. we have the debate, so we'll probably start around 7:30, 7:45ish. I think probably closer to 7:30. Last time he did the call in a little early. So we'll do that then. And then Monday we should have the socialism versus social democracy economy debate. That's where it stands. And then we should have the chess timer debates possibly next week. I don't know yet, but I think the independent thought panel will be at the next weekend. We'll probably won't have a stream on Sunday. Unless I get pulled into one of the panel shows. But as it stands, I'm currently not slated to be on any of them. But it does not mean, and I don't even know if they're still doing them, because I think Danabo stopped. So I don't know who's doing those. So we'll see. Yeah, and as for today, we're doing we've got the article about how good America healthcare is. Surprising it's not. Then we have Ben Shabibo video. We have the back to school stuff with Texas and what's it called Madison Cawthorn. Then we have Kirsten Sinema lying on The View or making a case for voter suppression, and then we have we're going to go through the timeline to discuss what happened on this federal eviction notice. Now, if you're new, please join the Discord. Please follow. Please subscribe. If you don't want to put your own money in, then you can just tie your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account, and then you get 1 month free. So that's where we stand for that. So let's get started with this first clip about the Americans' ability to do healthcare. All right. Oh, this is the whole thing.
COVID-19 vaccine before this winter, as the Delta variant will likely lead to more breakthrough infections. But Moderna said.
Hold on, all right, the U.S. healthcare system ranked last among 11 wealthy nations despite spending the most. The U.S. healthcare system ranked last among wealthy nations despite spending the highest percentage of its gross domestic product on healthcare, according to the analysis by the Commonwealth Fund. Researchers behind the report, surveyed tens of thousands of patients and doctors in each country and used data from the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development and the World Health Organization. The report consists of 71 performance measures that fell under 5 categories: access to care, the care process, administrative effectiveness, equality, and healthcare outcomes. Countries analyzed in the report include Australia, Canada, France, Germany, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom. Norway, the Netherlands, Australia were all the top performing countries, with the U.S. coming in dead last. U.S. ranked last in access to care, administration efficiency. Yes, healthcare for all. This is literally why you should have healthcare. The U.S. ranked last on access to care, administrative efficiency, equality, and healthcare outcomes, despite spending 70% of its GDP on healthcare, but it came in second on the measure of care process measures. The nation performed well in rates of mammographic screening and influenza vaccinations for older Americans, as well as percentage of adults who talked with their physicians about nutrition, smoking use. Half of lower-income U.S. adults in the report said costs prevent them from receiving care, while just more than a quarter of high-income Americans said the same. In comparison, just 12% of lower-income residents of the UK and 7% of higher income said the cost stopped them from getting care. U.S. also had the highest infant mortality rate and lowest life expectancy at age 20 compared to other countries. So, we don't let people get health care. It is not it's not efficient, it's not equal, and the healthcare outcomes aren't the same. We also have the most amount of people in the lower brackets unable to access that care. We have more wealthy people in this country. The horrible job data, the 900,000 new jobs, that looked pretty good. Well, this is just based on this article saying that these people can't actually receive the care. What is the U3, the U6? I haven't looked at the job stuff. I generally don't think that job numbers are truly accurate reflection of a president's ability. Also, Joe Biden will probably go down as the president who created the most jobs in U.S. history, mostly because he was starting with like a 20 million job hole. So, from what I could tell, at least, the fact that we have more jobs is good. We also have the U.S. also has the highest infant mortality. Like this is nuts. Research said several key factors set the highest performing nations apart from the U.S. Universal coverage, the removal of cost barriers. Okay. Well, look, a lot of the jobs we're going to create right now are people just going back to work. So, do you have specific data that you want me to look at to talk about? Then yeah, put it in here. But other than that, it's not something I've covered a lot. Universal coverage, the removal of cost barriers, investment in care systems to reduce inequality, and investment in social services of children and working age adults. The U.S. has 2 healthcare systems for Americans with means and insurance to have a regular doctor and reported experience with their day-to-day care are relatively good, but for those who lack access, the consequences are stark. Look, this report is just another one of the reports that just look at this. The poor performance is nothing new, as the U.S. has landed in last place of all 7 studies the Commonwealth Fund has released since 2004. Since 2004. We have been last place in all of the healthcare studies. But we cannot switch to another system because it will cost too much, even though we're paying more than every other country, or it will take away your freedom to choose. In which case, your freedom to choose now is, do you want healthcare or not? And can you afford it? look, this is a failure on a whole bunch of different points. It is a failure on our media's ability to tell you what's actually going on, to why people believe that we have an efficient healthcare system. It is a failure to a whole bunch of other things. Like, this is just a failure to capitalism. Well, no, let me rephrase that. This is a positive. It's a failure of the people to demand more. But part of the reason they don't demand more is because they're constantly being told the wrong things. For example, when we go talk about the Nina Turner stuff, one of the ads that the Israeli PAC ran against Nina Turner was that Nina Turner was not in favor for Medicare for all. And of course, these forced to vote people and other people will argue that the squatters the ones in the way of Medicare for all, which is just not true. How many times during the election do we hear about Medicare for all? It's also a failure for the corporations that are supposed to educate people to do that. Right. The states also have a problem. Look, it's not just the failure of the federal government. It is a broad set of failures. We also have to remember that there's one party that has gone out of its way to actively make its citizens either less, to make its citizens less healthy. There are multiple states that, while the federal government will pick up almost all the tab, it's like somewhere between 95 and 99% of the cost of expansion of Medicare, who have refused to expand Medicare. We don't need a benevolent dictatorship. What we need is a series of people to just constantly stop being stupid. We do need better education. And part of that is going to be, look, a lot of things are going, this is one of the beauties of what's happening with COVID. So, because of how businesses shut down and the amount of money people got for the one thing we did good during COVID, which was the unemployment insurance. While we did that, we were making progress. If Joe Biden truly wants to be the FDR type president that he claims to be, he should just do the New Deal Part 2. We have to move on from the kinds of concepts that we're used to. Workers are now understanding that they have more rights. That's why people are having a hard time finding jobs, because the jobs, the people who are doing the jobs will sit here and go, why is nobody coming to do this job? I'm working on it. It's backbreaking. It's because they don't pay them well. There are certain industries that are going to suffer a lot. It's mostly going to be the food industry, because they're the ones who have paid them their workers the least. We'll do the minimum wage debate on tomorrow, but other than that, like, this is nothing new. This data is just data on top. I'm actually saving this. This is just data on data on data on top of all the other information that I have shown over and over again that proves that you can that having a single payer healthcare is more effective. Now, as I open this up with, the numbers in Florida are very bad. It's 20% of the cases. They've broken their all-time record throughout the entire pandemic for the 3 of the last 5 days. They are their hospitalizations are increasing. Joe Biden basically called out Florida and Texas directly. He said, if you're not going to help us, get out of the way. And then Ron DeSantis said, put the immigrants. So let's see what Big Brain Ben Shabibo has to say about this, and then we'll move on to something else.
So what the media like to do is they like to pick on DeSantis when there's a surge in Florida. So it is all based on timing. They never give you the overall death stats from Florida because that debunks the argument. Instead, they point out when Florida is having a surge. Right? That's a big...
Oh, okay. Again, I've covered this for 2 separate reasons. The death counts are not the only thing that matter. Another time. So, the death stats are not the only thing that matters. One, because death stats generally lag behind the surge in cases, and generally the surge in cases leads to higher death counts. You're not going to have more people if it's not dying, if it's not deaths. And we're seeing a surge. We started at 4,000, and then like 2 weeks ago, it was around 200. Now it's close to 400 deaths. So the other thing is, we are better at treating this. So yes, it is still likely people die, but it is less likely ultimately that they will die to this because we're better at treating it. There's been mixed information from as far as I can tell about whether or not Delta is actually as dangerous as the other variants. But having more cases will ultimately lead to more deaths because at some percentage of the people who catch this will die. Also, deaths is not the only metric in which you need to use to look at this. If you only look at deaths, you're ignoring all this, the long COVID effects, and any other, financial issues or things that will come from it. Because look, even if the government is picking up the tab for your treatment, what if you have other issues that exist from this and you need further help from it?
Big deal. When Florida has a surge, that's a huge deal. And so this prompted Joe Biden yesterday to go after Ron DeSantis. Now, again, there's another reason they're going after DeSantis, and that is that Joe Biden is very much afraid that Ron DeSantis is going to be the Republican nominee for president in 2024.
No, it's because Ron DeSantis has done a shit job as Florida. Rob DeSantis and Greg Abbott are literally just fighting to see who can be the most Republican culture war victor. They're not actually doing anything to help the people. They are just doing culture war issues. Literally, if there was a wall to be able to be built, Ron DeSantis would build it, and then he would be winning. So far, the difference is Greg Abbott has successfully murdered more of the people in Texas. They haven't been able to pass their legislation, their voter suppression legislation, because the Democrats went to DC, which has given us fuck all, because people like Sinema and Manchin and Coons and probably a couple other Democrats who just are happy to stay in the shadows don't actually care about passing legislation that will help stop voting. You cannot out-mobilize around a gerrymander. You cannot out-mobilize when they're able to change the rules so that they can just change how elections work. I don't give a shit about voter ID. Voter ID is a stupid talking point that the Republicans use in order to sound reasonable while they do unreasonable things. And when caught up in the voter ID argument is missing the forest for the trees. And that's what we have to do. Anytime you see somebody say, "Why don't you want voter ID?" then you respond with, why don't you want ungerrymandered elections? Why don't you want why do you want to gain the ability to overturn an election? These are the responses. It doesn't matter. Voter ID, you can deal with in and out. You can mobilize around voter ID. You can come back and fix it another time, but it's not the pressing issue. Currently, today is also the 56th anniversary of the Civil Rights. Hold on, I don't remember what date. It's been of the Civil Rights Act being passed, and we should update it, and we should make sure that the elections are actually safe.
And could dismantle them in a debate, frankly. Not only because Joe Biden is not sentient, but because DeSantis is actually fairly good at this. So here was Joe Biden going after the governor of my state, Ron DeSantis, yesterday.
Wait, what do you mean the governor? I thought Ben was in Tennessee. Maybe he's from Florida.
Just two states, Florida and Texas, account for 1/3 of all new COVID-19 cases in the entire country. Just two states. Look, we need leadership from everyone. If some governors aren't willing to do the right thing to beat this pandemic, then they should allow businesses and universities who want to do the right thing to be able to do it. I say to these governors, please help. But if you aren't going to help, at least get out of the way of the people who are trying to do the right thing.
Oh, they're trying to do the right thing. Oh, Joe Biden, what a stellar example of a man trying to do the right thing. Well, Ron DeSantis was not taking the sitting down. He went directly back at Biden, which, by the way, is one of the reasons he's so popular among Republicans. And he went back.
Yeah, because Republican politicians are all about owning the libs. They're literally taking ivermectin, which is a horse dewormer, to own the libs. Because the ivermectin, if you don't know, is the new hydroxy. It's the new push for them getting their new fake cure.
Back at him, just face planted him. So he did a press conference yesterday in which he said, "Listen, Mr. President, you seem very intent on masking people up and locking them down, And if you are interested in
again, there's no one advocating for lockdowns. They just play. This is the same thing as saying, oh, they're keeping schools closed. This is just not a thing.
renewed lockdowns, I will stand in your way. By the way, this is a political battle that is very bad for Joe Biden. Joe Biden right now is sinking his own political approval rating because Americans are highly pessimistic about the future of the virus. They're pessimistic about the ability of government to stop it. They're pessimistic about Joe Biden's.
Americans are pessimistic about the future of the virus. Not because of government's ability to stop it, because specific people are stopping. Remember, Joe Biden came into office. There was 4,000 deaths a day. 4,000. There's something like 400 a day now. So we've cut the deaths by 90%. So something happened between the 4,000 and where we are today. Remember, a month ago, we were like, oh, this thing is done. We got it beat. We're on the right track. We're getting to where it needs to be. And then something changed. What changed? The spread of a faster virus, a more contagious virus, and governors going out of their way to stop people from dealing with this thing.
Presidency now. And Ron DeSantis knows this. This is not a good battle for Joe Biden to pick. He picked the wrong guy to pick on. Here was DeSantis face planting him yesterday.
If you're coming after the rights of parents in Florida, I'm standing in your way. I'm not going to let you get away with it.
Also, for the anti-big government crowd, it's awfully big government to argue what the schools can or cannot mandate by threatening their funding.
If you're trying to deny kids a proper in-person education, I'm going to stand in your way, and I'm going to stand up for the kids in Florida. If you're trying to restrict people, impose mandates, if you're trying to ruin their jobs and their livelihoods and their small business, if you are trying to lock people down, I am standing.
Okay, let's go over the things that Ron DeSantis face-planted Joe Biden in. If you are trying to stop kids from going to school. So Georgia opened up their schools without a mask mandate and then immediately had something like 30 cases. Like immediately. They were just right off the bat, they had massive amount of cases because people who were unvaccinated and people who didn't wear masks spread COVID. As for Florida, you're threatening the funding of schools that announce a mask mandate. The federal government has not declared official mask mandates. It has not done a vaccine mandate. Although it does appear that it's going to do one for the military, which it should. And anyone who argues that people are quitting the military, they don't understand, one, that they can't do that. And two, you don't understand how the military works. So, other than that, we're doing pretty good. And then things are going good. But other than that, he's just wrong on this stuff. He's just saying a bunch of buzzwords.
In your way, and I'm standing for the people of Florida.
Now, the problem for the left is that they wish that DeSantis was some sort of anti-vax advocate. DeSantis has been super pro-vaccination. DeSantis' state trenched out the vaccinations based on age, while the CDC was telling people not to.
DeSantis has been credibly accused of rolling out the vaccines directly to his to the people who funded his campaign first.
But DeSantis does recognize something that the rest of us should also recognize, which is that for public policy purposes, this pandemic is no longer in the hands of the government. Everybody who wants to be vaccinated has now been vaccinated. If you want to get vaccinated tomorrow, that can be your lucky day, because every day can be your lucky day. We all have the ability to get the vaccine at this point, which means government no longer has a role here. DeSantis knows this. DeSantis doubled down on this. He says, listen, we're not going to be Dr. Fauci's biomedical security state. That's not how we make decisions here in the state of Florida.
Look, the government still has a role in this because contrary to what people believe, it's still the government's job to protect the American citizens. And if the American citizens don't understand that the vaccine is the thing that's going to keep you safe, it is still the government's job and their requirement to keep pushing to get as many people vaccinated. Because when people aren't vaccinated, it leads to other problems, Ben.
Florida.
And so I think the question is we can either have a free society or we can have a biomedical security state. And I can tell you, Florida, we're a free state.
What is a biomedical security state? Also, your schools aren't free. You're threatening their funding.
People are going to be free to choose to make their own decisions about themselves, about their families, about their kids' education, and about putting food on the table.
Okay, DeSantis didn't stop there. He pointed out that it's kind of weird that Joe Biden is singling out Florida because Florida ranks middle of the pack in terms of deaths per million and is the second oldest state in the union after the great state of Maine, which has approximately 7 old people in a moose.
He means like at the age of... Florida is responsible for 20% of all cases in this surge.
Here was DeSantis saying, weird that Joe Biden would single out Florida.
Joe Biden has taken to himself to try to single out Florida over COVID. This is a guy who ran for president saying he was going to, quote, shut down the virus. And what has he done? He's imported more virus from around the world by having a wide open southern border. You have hundreds.
This is just fundamentally not true. We went over this yesterday, debunking the McAllen, Texas thing. This is also like the oldest racist trope of immigrants of like all time. Like number 1 is immigrants are causing crime, and number 2 is immigrants are disease carriers. This is a classic old trope. It is also fundamentally not true. And there's a really simple solution to this. Any person crossing the border who is then apprehended by Child Protective Services or Border Patrol or applies for asylum should be given a vaccine. There, done. We have more than enough supply to do this. You want to give them the Johnson & Johnson? Fuck it. Do it. You don't believe they're American. They're not American citizens, so you don't have an authority to not do that. And that would solve your problem there, even though it's not a problem. Again, also, even if this was a thing, and the people coming in were riddled with COVID, if you actually got every American vaccinated, and you got them to wear masks, depending on which where they are and the spread of Delta, the immigrants would not be able to spread that COVID. Like, if you engage in mitigation efforts, the outside forces dealing with this would not be an issue.
Hundreds of thousands of people pouring across every month, and it's not just from Mexico. In fact, it's rarely from Mexico. You have over 100 different countries where people are pouring through. Not only are they letting them through, they're then farming them out all across our communities across this country.
Okay, and he is exactly right about that. DeSantis continued along those lines. He says, listen, why don't you do your job? You're saying I'm not doing my job? How about you do your job? Like secure the southern border instead of shipping people with COVID into communities like McAllen, Texas.
Why don't you do your job? Why don't you get this border secure? And until you do that, I don't want to hear a blip about COVID from you. Thank you.
Okay, correct. Okay, so there's a reason why Biden is running a little bit scared of Ron DeSantis at
Nobody's scared of Ron DeSantis.
this point. And there's, again, a reason why the Biden administration is targeting one governor above all the other governors, and that is because DeSantis is the governor of a swing state. He's pretty popular down here, and he's been doing a very, very good job.
I mean, look, I don't know how much further Ben is going to suck on that cock, but everything he said here is wrong. It's wrong. He just is. That's all there is to it. DeSantis is not doing a good job. He's done literally everything possible to get in the way, short of lighting the vaccines on fire. There's multiple Republican governors who have come out and said, look, I'm sorry that we did the mask mandates. It was a mistake. However, we go from Ben Shapiro, who's the polished turd in the punch bowl, to the brand new shiny one. Oh, this is Texas. We'll go to the brand new shiny one next. So here's Texas. Here's what to know about vaccination requirements for Texas.
Okay, as I was saying a minute ago, we're going to kick off our back to school special this morning with health and safety concerns over the coronavirus pandemic. The Delta variant, as you well know, is spearheading just as students are heading back to class in person. A lot of them really want to go back. A large majority of them, the younger ones, unvaccinated because there are no vaccines available. So I can't imagine being a parent with a young child.
Let's see. COVID vaccine is not required for your kids, but there are. First, according to the latest Texas, that's per GA38. School systems cannot require students or staff to wear masks. GA38 addresses government-mandated face coverings in response to COVID vaccine. Other authorities are required protective equipment, including masks. Okay, so they're not required to wear masks. They cannot mandate that they wear masks. In addition, Greg Abbott's latest exclusive order, executive order forbids any mask mandates in schools. Cool. Good job there. Many are trying to change that. Teacher groups have petitioned the government to at least require masks in schools. Children younger than 12 are not eligible for the COVID vaccine, and there's currently no vaccine mandate in place for any student or staff in public schools in Texas. However, the Center for Disease Control has recommended everyone eligible over the age of 12 get COVID. If you are vaccinated your kid against COVID-19 before the school year, the last day to do so, it was July 6th. Okay, wow. The latest T guidance also states that schools do not have to inform parents of positive COVID cases, but they do have to report the information to state and local health departments. Schools also don't have to contact trace, but if they choose to do so, parents can still choose to send their school if they're... What is the point of all of this? Schools don't have to inform parents of a positive case. Fantastic. My kid is positive. His buddy, my kid's buddy is now positive. And then, like, holy shit. They're just actively trying to make things as difficult as possible to stop this in Texas. They don't have to inform parents of a positive case. Why? What if your kid is now asymptomatic and they spread it to somebody else? Schools don't have to conduct concert training. So little Jimmy has COVID. They don't have to tell anybody he has COVID, but they don't have to trace back to see who else he does. And even if you find out your kid, even if they do contract trace, they can still send your kid back, even if they're in close contact with the affected student. This is so crazy. How is this a thing? Who looked at this and went, I see no problem here? How do you look at this and say we're doing everything we can to stop COVID? Like, what is the thought process? Like, did COVID write this? Like, you must have had zero medical like, this would have been okay, maybe, at the start of the pandemic. We're a year and a half into this. How do you have so little just understanding of anything? Just that this is what you came up with. That is just fucking wild. All right, let's go to a different person arguing about schools, and that would be Madison Cawthorn.
To the members of this board,
Noted liar Madison Cawthorn, who says all the time that he's a fighter for North Carolina's 11th, even though he voted against all the COVID relief. So anytime you see Madison Cawthorn take credit for the money that North Carolina's 11th received, know that Madison Cawthorn did not want you to get that. Everything about this person is a lie. He has lied about pretty much every single thing in his record.
I believe you should all consider running for federal office. I genuinely believe you would all fit in very well in Washington, D.C. And although that's humorous, it is absolutely correct, because you have muzzled their voices just like you have muzzled our children. You passed this mask.
A mask mandate is not a muzzle. You are a lunatic. That is not how muzzles work.
Mandate without input from those who hold you accountable because you knew it was wrong. You knew it would never withstand the scrutiny of the public. I've witnessed swampy backdoor tactics from corrupt bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., but what you have done here today puts that all to shame. You have sacrificed the social, emotional, and psychological development of our children on the altar of wokeness.
Come on. Really? This is like one-trick pony bullshit. Aren't they tired of this? Do you ever get tired of being wrong? What is this? This is just too much. These people are too stupid. Speaking of that, here's Kirsten Sinema on The View. I wonder if they replaced
the
Meghan
sense of
McCain.
urgency.
So I assume she's talking about the filibuster. How you doing, DFK? Let's see what she says here.
The sense of urgency, I think many of us share in wanting to protect voting rights, and we're all working to do this across the country. But eliminating this tool would
How you been, man? It's been a while.
result in very negative restrictions on voting rights in the future. So thinking about this from the long term rather than the just right now term, I think is really important. This sense of urgency.
This is, again, a nonsense talking point that makes no sense. You cannot have... Her argument is, bad things could happen in the future, so we can't stop the bad things from happening now. This is just nonsense. You can't... You can easily stop these things. You don't need to even to eliminate the filibuster to do this. All you have to do is carve out a provision in the filibuster for 50 votes for voting rights. And all you need to pass is a bill that does three things. It eliminates partisan gerrymandering. It eliminates the ability for a state elector to remove electorates that they don't like because they don't like the outcome. And you need to you need to stop the ability for a state to roll back a person's right to vote, whether it's access to ballot boxes, whether it's mail-in voting, whether it is drop boxes, any of that. You need to roll all three of those things back. But even if you only do the first one, that is the important one. So, yeah, you don't need to do the film. Look, Kirsten Sinema is at best a Republican. There has been no person I can think of who has so dramatically flipped from where they started their campaign and what they originally ran on to what they do now. If you want any proof that there is massive rampant corruption in our system and that these people don't care about you but only about your donors, she is Exhibit A, B, and C, and then Joe Manchin is Exhibit D. This person was a progressive. She ran as a progressive, and she has turned her back on every single policy that she believes in. The amount of damage that is going to come to this country because of people like Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin and Chris Coons and any other Democrat who refuses to fight for the voting rights is incalculable. If these people were up in 22, maybe we would see a different result. But they're not. Joe Manchin squeaked by in his last election. Maybe expanding voting rights would allow him to not squeak by. Maybe if Joe Manchin wasn't so worried about his own profits, he would actually fight for things like green energy so he could replace the jobs that are being lost to coal. Or he could fight for things like protecting the pharmaceutical workers in his own state. But he can't do that because his fucking daughter is one of the people who destroys them. This is unbelievably frustrating. There is just no words to explain how out of touch and how much damage these people are going to cause to the country because they refuse to understand literally anything. I get it. You're doing it for the donors, but like at some point, you want to be reelected, don't you? I would think you'd want to be. Kirsten Sinema is so far underwater right now. She doesn't even have Democrat support. Whoever primaries her is going to get a bag drop of support from them because of what she is doing. There's the only survival point for Kirsten Sinema at this point is if they lose the Senate, is for Kirsten Sinema to become a Republican. That is it. That is the only way she survives her 2020, I think she's 4, re-election. It's just, look, any failures from the Biden administration will be placed across a couple of people. One, for Joe Biden for not pushing hard enough, and maybe we have information behind the scenes that we don't know about. But most effectively, the people who are failing the American people are Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema first and foremost, because they are the ones who've decided that they want the spotlight. They want the American people to know that every single step of progress is going to be had to draw from their cold, dead hands. The only way we're getting any type of reconciliation bill for the bipartisan bill that she helped write, which is dog shit, and then the bigger reconciliation bill, the only way we will get on that bill is it has to be something that both AOC and Joe Manchin agree on. That's where the split is going to be. And the vote for the bipartisan bill is coming up. They need to get to work on the reconciliation bill because they have to do the least the work for the reconciliation bill, so we have a bill ready, so that if the bipartisan bill gets tanked, they can deal with whatever fighting they have to go through with Sinema and Manchin in order to get the rest of the reconciliation bill approved. It's as simple as that. This is not new. This is not hard. This is how it's going to work. There's going to be a 2-track process for this. Now, while they are doing this, we have to discuss the kerfuffle that happened because the Biden administration didn't do pretty much anything ahead of time to deal with this federal moratorium. So we have an eviction moratorium. We've had it for a while now. So where did this start with? The temporary halt to residential evictions to prevent further spread of COVID-19. This was started in September of 2020. Actually, might have started earlier. So the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Department of Health and Human Services, summary. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention Human Services, located within the Department of Health and Human Services, announces the issuance of an order under Section 361 of the Public Health Service Act to temporarily halt residential evictions to prevent the further spread of COVID. This order is effective September 4th through December 31st. There's a current pandemic of respiratory disease COVID caused by SARS, the COVID virus. What? No. There is absolutely voter suppression happening. It's always been a thing. It is now been kicked up to high gear, and the further gutting of the Voting Rights Act allows it for happen. This is not a nonsense scare. They're literally passing bills that will eliminate the people's rights to vote in certain areas. Most notably, it has nothing to do with voter ID. It just doesn't. There's actual voting laws. Right, Joe Biden got the most votes of any presidential candidate in the history of the country. Ever. So, it's not a turnout issue. The issue is literally about the systems that they're putting in place. So, yeah. What's wrong with mail-in voting? There's literally nothing wrong with mail-in voting. So, rolling back mail-in voting, rolling back the drop boxes, rolling back drop sites. Texas tried to overturn 125,000 votes The AG of Texas has come out and said that the only reason Texas didn't go blue, why does it matter? So he shouldn't be able to vote in mail because it helped him? Then we shouldn't allow in-person voting because it helped Donald Trump. The reason Joe Biden won through mail-in voting is because Donald Trump spent months lying to people about it. Yeah, he did. It had nothing to do with Joe Biden as a candidate. Part of it had to do with Donald Trump being such a terrible candidate. Nobody's arguing that Joe Biden's going to be a better... Well, there are people arguing that. But this idea like, I don't believe that Joe Biden surpassed Barack Obama. The numbers tell you you're wrong. I don't give a shit what you think about it from the eye test. The numbers tell you you're wrong. Joe Biden won the election with the most votes ever. As the mail-in voting, the reason that Donald Trump lost is because he told his people not to vote. He told them, and that's why they lost the Senate. So did Hillary. But you know what happened in Florida? Florida passed a minimum wage. If Joe Biden had ran on a minimum wage, he probably would have won Florida. Usually. But that's not true. George Bush in 2000 lost Florida and won the presidency. Donald Trump lost Florida and lost the presidency in 2020. I mean, look, I don't know what you're trying to argue. That there's voter fraud? Because there's not. Yep, and he lost the election once. Florida is not the only state in the union. He didn't win Michigan the second time. Just because you win Florida doesn't mean you win the election. Should have lost Texas. So the moratorium has been expanded a couple times. And most recently, it was set to expire at the end of July. And they said this in June. And what happened was the Supreme Court had to rule on this because of a lawsuit brought to them by landlords to argue this. The Supreme Court on Tuesday refused to lift the ban on evictions for tenants who have failed to pay all or some rent during the coronavirus pandemic. By a 5-4 vote, the court left in place the nationwide moratorium on evictions, issues raised by the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. The Alabama Associates of Realtors had challenged the moratorium. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who cast the fifth and deciding vote, wrote in a concurring opinion. So this is important. That he voted not to end the eviction program because it was only set to expire on July 31st, and because those few weeks will allow for additional and more orderly distribution of the funds Congress appropriated to provide rental assistance to those in need due to the pandemic. He added, however, that in his view, Congress should have passed new and clearer legislation to extend the moratorium past July 31st. So, we knew this in July, or in June. This is literally the end of June. When is this passed? This was the June 29th. This ruling came down. So for a whole month, they knew that the moratorium was going to end. Now, there's two things we have to look at. One of the things is this opinion. This is an opinion. This is not... Now, you're going to hear people say, the Supreme Court has ruled this is unconstitutional. Those people are wrong. That's not what happened here. What happened here is in a subheading, Justice Kavanaugh wrote an opinion. This is not binding. This is not saying that these things are illegal. What he says is, I agree with the district court and the applicants that the Center for Disease Control Prevention exceeded its existing authority by issuing a nationwide eviction moratorium. Because the CDC plans to end the moratorium only in a few weeks on July 31st, and because those few weeks will allow for additional and more orderly distribution of congressional appropriate rent assistance funds, I vote at this time to deny the application to the verdict. So, what this means is, they knew a month ago that they needed to do this by law. Congress had to pass this. They said the CDC could not extend it. But here's the other thing. He's not saying it's there would have to be a case would have to be brought to the Supreme Court for them to overturn it. Now, if you argue, oh, well, then you're passing something that you knowingly know is unconstitutional, yes and no. Now, first off, governors pass laws all the time that they know are unconstitutional in order to test different parts of the court. That's why we end up with all these anti-abortion laws. That's why we end up with these what's it called? The free speech laws and stuff like that, and these voting laws and these tax stuff. There's a lot of stuff that just passed simply to test the court. However, the court is not very quick. It would have to make its way up to the Supreme Court. So what happened was the government or the Joe Biden administration either did not tell these people or nobody was paying attention till about the last weekend. Now, when the Biden administration put out a statement saying we want the Congress to pass a law about this, which they could have done at any time in the last month because generally Congress is still kind of waiting for the Senate to get its shit in order. So it doesn't really matter what Congress is doing. So they could have been arguing this simultaneously with the infrastructure bill. These things could have happened simultaneously. It would have just been, we're going to extend the eviction moratorium for another month or whatever it is. What happened was when the Joe Biden, like 2 days before they left, told them that 20 Democrats said we would vote against this legislation because we want to go home. These are conservative Democrats. And instead, Nancy Pelosi told them to go home. So what happened from there is the eviction moratorium ended. And then a group of congresspeople, led by Cori Bush, who was homeless for a while, led the charge to get the Biden administration to pass something. Just anybody to pass something. Nancy Pelosi said, we will not bring them back. We will not pass. We expect the Biden administration to do it. So the Biden administration, by their own standards, then shot themselves further in the foot by saying, look, we can't do this because there's this binding ruling by the Supreme Court, which just isn't true. So what we have here is basically a group of Democrats dropping the ball over and over and over again. They dropped it when they didn't force the Congress to pass some type of legislation. Congress dropped the ball when they didn't realize this and also not pass more legislation. Nancy Pelosi dropped the ball again when she decided not to force her members back for this vote. And then Joe Biden dropped the ball when they said, look, we're doing something we think is illegal, but we have to do it because it's the right thing. You don't need to do this. Literally half of the reason any type of argument with conservatives, they have any level of power, is because of messaging. The conservatives are very good at their messaging. Their messages are terrible, and they're generally wrong, but they're good at it. This saved Cori Bush. And Jen Psaki went out and said, we praised Cori Bush's story. She did a good job, but Nancy Pelosi was the one. Cori Bush is the one who saved 7 million people from losing their homes. All right. I literally was just talking about this. I understand that's what he said. He is, though, wrong. Yes, and why? First off, I understand that. And let me continue to explain what's going to happen. The reason it doesn't matter that he is doing this now is because it's going to take a while to pass to the Supreme Court. When they may strike it down then. And when they strike that down, then we'll deal with those consequences. But till that happens, 2 things are going to simultaneously occur, or in hope that 2 things will simultaneously occur. 1, there's like $400 billion of aid that has yet to be distributed to their constituents from the states. And this aid is supposed to help people deal with their unemployment, with their rent. It's given to landlords or it's given to constituents, and then they pay their landlords in order to keep them up. That's all right. I know you keep typing these things, but you're also not listening to me. I already have said that Joe Biden shot himself in the foot by making this statement. However, the statement is out there. This is not the law. The thing is passed. So they're going to have to fight it in the courts. So while it's in the courts and until it makes its way to the Supreme Court, they will have to, one, make sure that more people can actually get this assistance so it's not 7 million Americans dealing with this. Two, they can actually pass a law to extend this legally. So then they can roll back the CDC's mandate on it. They can just replace it with a government mandate. They can take care of this. They won't. They haven't. They should. I understand that it appears to be unconstitutional. However, the reason it appears to be that way is because he wrote an opinion. This is not binding. It would have to go through the courts to make it binding. And for all those people who are going to complain about, oh, Joe Biden's purposely doing something illegal, think about the consequences when somebody does something like this versus had he not. And versus what happens when these red states purposely pass restrictive abortion laws that they know are unconstitutional. Let's weigh them out now. Joe Biden does nothing because at this point we're going to continue with the world where the Nancy Pelosi has failed at her job or the Biden administration has failed at communication. One of them fucked up, and we now have the moratorium has expired. Remember, this happened under McConnell as well. They purposely let the mandate expire for people getting unemployment insurance. They did this on purpose to use as a bargaining chip. The Democrats didn't even use this as a bargaining chip for anything. They just let it happen. They had no plan for this. So, if you believe that this is unconstitutional based on what he appeared to have said, let's look at the outcome. The outcome is, in the middle of a rising pandemic, 7 million Americans would lose their homes. We already have a housing crisis that can be solved by dealing with simple problems. There are plenty of places where there are more houses than there are homeless, and these houses are sitting empty. The government can then these houses can then be rented out to homeless with a grant, some type of grant or some type of government involvement in order to pay for that rent, so those people are no longer homeless. We have thousands of hotels that are going under. The government can purchase those and use them as halfway houses. We are in the middle of a pandemic where the virus spreads by having people close together. So instead of having us criminalize homelessness like they just did in LA, like they did in Austin, in Austin, or by drawing lines on the ground to mark 6 feet out, making sure people have homes, is the way to do this. The other reason, and the more important reason that this is still an issue, is because tenants are still unable to pay their bills. The number of eviction filings already ticked up in some states. While over $46 billion in rental relief is allocated by the federal government, just $3 billion has made it out. Now, this is also a recurring theme that happened with the unemployment benefits. There are a lot of states that have designed their unemployment system to be as complicated and difficult as possible to navigate. And the reason they do that is because by not having people being able to navigate them, they can force those numbers down. And it looks like they're doing a good job with unemployment when in reality, people are unable to get the sustenance that they need from the unemployment benefit. This is one of the things that I advocate for, is a larger social safety net. This is a social safety net. I don't understand how this is not one thing that's not being pushed out. Each state has its own program and process for distributing the aid. However, tenants face an uphill battle when it comes to getting the relief, since they have to overcome multiple barriers, says Caitlin Confederate, as staff attorney for Legal Aid of Nebraska, represents tenants in eviction cases to help them access financial assistance. The most basic barrier, at least in Nebraska, is that many tenants often have no idea the assistance is even available. If they are aware, they might not know they are eligible for it, especially if they have already received it once. Qualifying households are eligible for up to 12 months of back rent for the debt accrued since March 13, 2020, as well as up to 12 months of electronics or gas utility back pay. Online-only applications present another challenge for people who are not tech-savvy or do not have internet access. The applications are not particularly smartphone-friendly, she says, and many low-income tenants have only access to a smartphone rather than a desktop computer. So, what does this mean? This means this is a messaging issue on top of a logistic issue. If I was in charge of a state that received this funds, this would be one of the multiple of public health ads I would be running. Do you know where you can get vaccinated? Would be number one. Do you know where you can get your rental assistance? Would be number two. Again, this is a messaging issue. This is bureaucracy at its worst. This is like the fact that so many people like what's going on in the American Rescue Plan, but they don't know all the aspects to it, or they don't know that they could access this information, is a messaging issue. When you do something good, you should be touting it. This rental assistance is a good thing. Get on top of it. If you're in a blue state, because I don't even think New York has done a good job with this. Some states have expanded their own moratorium, but this is not a hard sell. There's money there from the federal government. This happens in a lot of cases. This also happens in unemployment. This happens in healthcare, where you have the ability to help more people, but you don't advocate for it. There are certain things that need to be yelled from the rooftops. Where you get vaccinated, how to get this insurance. This needs to be also made more easily done for people who don't have access to the internet, which is another push. This could very easily be combined with your push for infrastructure. Say, look, the way that infrastructure works now is we need to have a stronger broadband where every single American can access the internet. Because if they need to get future aid and they don't have access to a laptop, that should not preclude them from having access to that aid. This is not difficult. This is a self-inflicted wound. Over and over again. It is incredible how feckless and pathetic these Democrats are. Now, not all of them. Cory Bush is a goddamn national hero. And you know what? On the same day she won this victory, progressives got a kick in the head with the Nina Turner stuff. But not having Cory Bush into office, because one of the charges against her was she was homeless, means that not having Cory Bush there would have meant that 7 million people would have lost their homes. So yeah, pressure does work. So for all those people, online lefties, who are like, oh yeah, pressure doesn't do anything, me. Pressure works, as long as you apply it correctly. Force the vote does not work. It is a nonsense talking point that does nothing. Attacking Cory Bush because she doesn't celebrate your force the vote or your Jimmy Dore shit is lunacy. Jimmy Dore is not a lefty. Jimmy Dore is a sexual harasser who bragged about it and is a lunatic who's not going to help this country anyway. And watching him is not effective to help move this country forward. This is a man who agrees with the Boogaloo Boys, who's going on Joe Rogan to help push nonsense talking points about vaccine side effects. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. It's a very online left thing to deal with to understand what's happening here. So, let's see what that's really like all there is to this. Having more people vaccinated is number one. Allowing your people to not deal with this issue, not telling them how to get this aid is a massive misstep. It is unconscionable how poorly they have handled this. But now we know the clock is ticking. Let's see what happens. Obviously, we're going to be dealing with some part of bipartisanship, but you have time. I don't know when their break ends. It should be called back tomorrow. You guys work for like 16 minutes a day. You should be able to get together to write an expansion of this bill until all the money is funneled. That's all you have to write. The eviction moratorium will last until all the money allocated has been funneled. Done. You want to change how that is? Fine. I don't care. We can discuss that another time if somebody wants to discuss how that should be done. But this is not a long stretch reach. There is no reason for this to have happened. They have failed. I did see that. Good. If you're supposed to be vaccinated and you don't, your employer has the right to fire you. Those are their rules. Do I think they should have? And obviously, the people are going to argue, oh, they brought back Jeffrey Toobin and they brought back, or they kept Chris Cuomo. Those are different options. I don't care. I also saw that the CBO score said that the bipartisan infrastructure bill will pay for, will add $200 billion to the deficit. That first off, that's nothing. Second, this is the perfect. Yeah, Cuomo should have been fired. Exactly. But CNN does this thing. To be fair, people on the right don't really get to they're going to complain while they have, and that should have fired him. Well, I'm pretty sure Cuomo's about to get impeached. So we're good there. As for, Fox has how many lawsuits to cover up sexual harassers? At least 4 off the top of my head. And they willingly got people killed. They knowingly got people killed by COVID, by spreading their lies. And they got people killed at the January 6th. What did Fox get in trouble with, though? No. They paid out settlements, and then they had to fire people when it came to light. No, they went to court and they won. They got threatened with lawsuits, and that's why they had to change their tune. But they had to fire their talent because they had paid. Yeah, they still paid them. So Fox didn't hurt Fox. It hurt them a little, but they're fine. They're a massive corporation. Also, I don't give a shit about Rudy Giuliani. This idea that impeachment is unjust and un-American is just factually incorrect. You just don't understand America. You don't understand how our laws work. And Rudy Giuliani is a lunatic. Where were we? We were talking about the CBO score. This idea that the budget reconciliation, the infrastructure bill has to be paid in full right away is like saying that you bought your house and paid for it entirely right off the bat. No, it's not a good tweet. It's nonsense. That's not how investigation. First of all, there's an investigation into the impeachment trial, and then there's a trial. Donald Trump did not get denied a trial. Donald Trump had a trial. His allies allowed him to get away with breaking the law multiple times. There's not a good tweet. Donald Trump got due process. Cuomo got due process. There was an investigation. There was it wasn't even a criminal investigation. There was an investigation done, and the investigation found him guilty. And then what happened from there is that actual AGs who are going to bring criminal charges, including Mimi Rourke in Westchester, and then there was another one, I think, in the Bronx, have asked for the evidence. Kavanaugh got, what does that even mean? First off, Kavanaugh got massive due process. Also, what negative effects happened to Kavanaugh? Is the man not a Supreme Court justice? No, he was accused of, I think one of them might have. He was accused of sexual assault in high school. Yeah. Among other things. And there was an investigation. It was a dog shit investigation, but it happened. So what part of Kavanaugh was not done under due process? What part of that? Was it when the White House ran interference to protect him from an investigation that they shortchanged? Was it when he got the position, even though people said that they had 11 witnesses? There was first off, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just wrong. You're wrong on the Kavanaugh thing. There is overwhelming reporting to say that the FBI found multiple credible witnesses to what happened with Kavanaugh. And when they gave that information to, you're just wrong. You just are. They found multiple credible accusers. They gave that information to the White House, and the White House did nothing with it. Yeah, and then did you see Blasey Ford? I believe Blasey Ford. I don't know about the other ones, but I believe her. Also, what happened to Kavanaugh? Kavanaugh made his got his job. He's a Supreme Court justice, so this is nonsense. The right cries about things when they get their way. Andrew, you don't get to complain about Andrew Cuomo about Andrew Cuomo. You don't get to say, look at this, they're not doing the right thing. If you stand by Donald Trump's multiple allegations, 29 separate allegations. Yeah, that is true too. 29 allegations for Donald Trump, Roy Moore being a credibly accused child molester, Jim Jordan being credibly accused of standing by while sexual assault happened. We have Matt Gaetz, who's a credibly accused pedophile. If you do not care about any of those things, you don't get to complain about Cuomo. This is not a hard argument either. Yeah, Roy Moore is objectively the worst person to have ever run from Senate. And the party that then turned into... What are you talking about? I absolutely know I guarantee you I know the Moore story more than you do. The Roy Moore story, what did I cite wrong last time? Tell me what I'm wrong, because I guarantee you I'm not wrong. Let's ignore the fact that the man doesn't believe in half of the amendments. For the party that turned into QAnon for anti-child sex trafficking rings, they're totally okay with Roy Moore. Totally okay. They're totally okay with the child beauty pageants. They're totally okay with Donald Trump saying that he used to walk into teen beauty pageants to watch them undress because he was in charge of them. I am very right on Roy Moore. As for the budget thing with the infrastructure bill, if you want to not have it be a negative on the budget, then let's have some way to he was banned from that mall. Yeah, the fact that Roy Moore still... Also, which Republican has ever been thrown out for sexual assault stuff? We threw out, what's his face? Al Franken. They threw out Katie Hill for something she didn't even do. Newt Gingrich argues for multiple, family values while he's had multiple wives. O'Reilly was fired from Fox, a private company. He wasn't a national representative. And then you know what O'Reilly did? He just almost went on tour with Donald Trump. O'Reilly is still a figure. He still goes on Glenn Beck. He still goes He's still, if Fox would allow him to still call into Fox, he has his own show. I imagine he would be on different Daily Wire stuff. He has a massive still audience. So dealing with the budget shortfall for the infrastructure bill. No, I don't know what you're talking about because every time you talk, you're wrong. Dealing with the budget shortfall for the infrastructure bill is very simple. All you have to do is tax somebody. So let's talk about how this was supposed to be done. It was supposed to be done by raising the federal minimum wage for the federal tax bracket from 21% to 28% or 25%, which would still have been a massive tax cut. Then they said no to that. So then they said, okay, we're going to put money into the IRS so that we can recoup on the $1 trillion a year in taxes that are not being paid by the wealthy. Let me repeat that. By putting $80 billion into the IRS, we can return $1 trillion in taxes not being paid by the wealthy, which would pay for this bill in less than 2 years. Keep in mind, this bill allocates less than $110 billion a year in federal funding for infrastructure. It is nowhere near big enough or capable of dealing with the problem. There is massive amount of issues that they could have done to deal with this. Instead, the Republicans and the Democrats who were negotiating basically said we're just going to allow corporations to control all of our roads and bridges, and that's how we will pay for it, and we'll pay for it with gas taxes, and we'll pay for it on the back of the American people instead of the wealthy, the people who can afford it. So I don't want to hear shit about people arguing about, oh, it's going to hurt the deficit. Yeah, I was kind of waiting for somebody to do that. But from there, we'll see. I don't know where this budget bill is going to go. That's because I've named them all. I've named all of them. Let's be clear about something else. If Andrew Cuomo was a Republican, he would be number 1 or 2 in all of their presidential polling. He did a shit job. He did a shit job in COVID. Allowed 150,000, killed like 15,000 old people, which, the lieutenant governor of Texas says is a good thing, and no Republican bats an eye. And then he has sexual assault allegations. He's like the perfect Republican. He's that strong man that they want. If he was a Republican, he would have destroyed Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis wouldn't even be a joke. Florida would actually be significantly better off if Andrew Cuomo was a Republican. And so did Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is currently downplaying it. And that's exactly why he would be the best Republican. That's just the way it is. That was all I had. I guess we could check Twitter, see what's going on Twitter. They inflated the death numbers. Who inflated the death numbers? They think they're inflated because they know that there's more virus out there than there appears to be, or because we did such a shit job of testing to begin with. I don't think anyone inflated. Let's see. But yeah, if you guys are new, please like and subscribe. If you're not new, then join the Discord if you're not already there. But other than that, I think we're covering up the death toll is worse than what? Yeah, I agree. Covering up the death toll is worse. I think there's still an investigation going into that. But if you don't care about what's happening with Kristi Noem, if you don't care what's happening with Ron DeSantis, if you don't care what's happening in Georgia, you don't get to argue those. Bad things are bad things regardless. I don't think so. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Is there any stories that I'm missing that are worth covering? Reminder, we have the debate tomorrow at 8 p.m., so we'll probably start around 7:30. Yeah, obviously climate change is bad. I don't think we've had a... Dinesh D'Souza had a guy on. He had a guy on debating climate change stuff. But I don't want to spend that much... It was like a 9-part thing where they were all like 10 minutes plus. I'm not spending that much time looking at Dinesh D'Souza shit. But that was pretty wild. Yeah, climate change is obviously the number one issue facing us. Which would be nice if our infrastructure... do you want to post that? I haven't seen anything about that. I'd look at that if you want to. Yeah, but the droughts have been... Those aren't really new. That's the sad thing. They're not new droughts. Wait, how's the Gulf Stream killer? Oh, this is like brand new. Brand new. Wait, let's take a look at this. Crucial ocean circulation is showing signs of instability. How does that happen? Crucial system current in the Atlantic Ocean that helps control temperatures in the northern hemisphere and has implications for the entire planet's weather system is showing signs of instability due to man-made climate change. Helps the Atlantic Meridian overturn circulation, which the Gulf Stream is a major part of. Helps maintain the energy balance in the Atlantic Ocean. Is often described as a conveyor belt that takes warm surface water from the tropics and distributes it to the North Atlantic. Though the thresholds for what such a collapse is uncertain. Holy shit. Spread do you want to check whatever that is before I look at it? Global patterns are critically linked to circulation, transport of heat, and nutrients around the planet. Fast sea level rises, more extreme winters in Eastern Europe, and distributions to monsoon systems. Oh, is it comparing them to with that weird picture of whatever happened with Joe Biden and whoever else he's talking to? Is it worth bringing up or no? The circulation is weaker than it's been around 1,000 years, science have said. All right. Okay, so this appears to be the premise for the day after tomorrow. So we're looking at ice caps. Ooh, that'll be fun. But obviously all of this is fake science that the scientists are pushing to make more money for themselves. Let's see what else is. Let's see what's trending at Twitter. Judge Fox. Oh yeah. Joe Biden wore a tan suit today. I don't know if it's 50% or more. What is this? I don't know what this is enough to comment on us. Maybe I'll comment on it. Oh, I want to see the Mike Lindell get confronted.
MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell continues to claim he has evidence that China hacked U.S. voting systems and switched votes for the former president to Biden votes. In a moment, you'll hear what 24 election officials and cyber experts contacted by CNN say about those claims. Lindell is not backing down even as he faces a lawsuit from voting machine maker Dominion alleging he's defamed the company with his false accusations, and Lindell's company is countersuing. CNN's Drew Griffin.
He said he lost something like $35 to $65 million doing this.
Went to Minnesota to talk to Lindell about his claims that threaten democracy. Here's Drew's report.
The MyPillow guy.
Mike Lindell. Yes, the MyPillow guy is convinced. China hacked the election, Donald Trump really won, and Lindell has the absolute proof.
They did it in all the states. Every
and
single
they changed
state.
the votes.
Every single state.
And you have the proof.
Yes.
That will show
I have the whole data.
The actual exchange of votes.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
It is, of course, complete nonsense. Despite every piece of so-called evidence Lindell has presented so far, 3 videos, a lawsuit, screenshots he sent to CNN, there's still no proof that the election was hacked, and that's according to 24 cyber experts and election officials contacted by CNN.
Crazy that all these people are deep state and lying to us. Also, if you are following Jenna Ellis on Twitter, anytime you see her tweet something, ask her where her voter fraud evidence, and that she has a duty to the American people to prove it, whether she has it or not. And if she doesn't, then she's lying and needs to stop talking.
100% evidence.
When Lindell released his so-called evidence in videos like this, fact checkers quickly found out it was evidence of nothing. These images are just publicly available voter data, scrolling across the screen, not proof of election hacking. So Lindell changed his story, saying now the real evidence will be revealed at a cyber symposium, streamed live with MyPillow discounts available throughout. And as further proof, he sent CNN a preview, 6 different screenshots.
You sent us this on Friday.
Yeah.
What is this?
That's just one piece of 1.2 billion lines of data from the election. Okay, within that will be timestamps of when it happened. There'll be flips in there.
So we sent this to our own experts. Mm-hmm. He said that it doesn't show any specific actions of any kind, election related or not, and it's proof of nothing.
Okay, so he said that's nothing, huh? Well, he's wrong. Then you didn't hire a cyber expert.
We didn't consult just one cyber expert. We consulted 9 top election security experts who told us Lindell's screenshots were extremely rudimentary metadata and completely ridiculous. We also reached all 15 officials from the 15 counties where Lindell says, without any proof, votes were hacked and switched. Lindell mentions some of the counties in his videos and lists them out in his counter lawsuit against Dominion Voting. They are counties that use paper ballots counted by systems not connected to the internet. Every one of them told CNN there is no evidence they were hacked by anyone.
You identified 15 counties where the votes were switched. We contacted all 15 counties, red and blue. Red and blue.
That doesn't matter.
And we couldn't find a single person that said this is even possible. They say, are you mistaken?
Right.
They think you're wrong.
Right.
The bottom line is they have paper ballot backups that prove that they were not.
So you guys went and they let you audit there? They let you do a full audit, CNN? You guys did a full audit on 15 counties, huh?
We did what Lindell did not do. We went to Delta County, Michigan to see how the election was carried out. Trump won here, nearly 2-1.
The state, Michigan, entry point owner, Delta County.
In his videos and his lawsuit, Lindell claims someone in China hacked the election system here and stole away precisely 3,215 Trump votes and turned them into Biden votes. The Republican county clerk, Nancy Przrocki, finds the allegation laughable for one main reason.
It is never connected to.
Let's see if there's anything else worth covering. Oh, this is crazy. Ashley Babbitt's family is filing a $10 million wrongful death suit against U.S. Capitol Police. Her attorney says she was ambushed by the officer who shot her, who was giving no warning or verbal command. These people are lunatics. It is unbelievable. Anyway, I think we're about done here today. I thank you guys for joining. Anyone here who is new, please feel free to like and subscribe. If you don't want to put any money in, then you can feel free to do it through putting your tying your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account, and then you can do it. So tomorrow we will be here around 7:30 p.m. EST for the debate, and then I don't know if we'll do one on Sunday, but Monday we will also have a debate. So thank you guys for being here, and I will see you tomorrow.